So the whole album had been recorded, finished, mixed, and Steve Evitts and I drove to Alan Douch's studio in northern New Jersey for the mastering. I woke up with an epiphany. Oh my gosh, it'd be so cool if the album started with a guitar plugging in. So I drove there and I told Steve, I had this idea, but we're not in the studio. Is there any way we can do this here? And Alan has a great recording studio. It's not just a mastering studio. So sure enough, we just set up an amp, mic'd it up, and I intentionally missed the jack and then retract it, and that's that. Hey, I'm Chris Conley from Saves the Day, and this is the oral history of Through Being Cool. When I was writing Through Being Cool, I was at NYU for my first year and first and only year there, and we were playing shows on the weekend and going back to school and writing papers and whatnot, and I was just writing songs the whole year. I was taking a lot of creative writing classes, so the lyrics for the album were actually, a lot of them were just writing assignments, that we got, write about a certain topic or something like that, or meditate on a certain feeling and write about it. The songs I was writing in my dorm, and our drummer Brian was at NYU as well, so I'd go over to his dorm and hang out over there and show him the songs that I was writing. And then I would demo them I'd go home to Princeton and I'd record them in the basement. And they sounded really, really cool. We were really psyched on them. So we booked studio time at the end of the year with Steve Evitts, who produced our first album, Can't Slow Down. We had 11 days booked to track the album. The first album we did in 8 days, so it was cool to have the couple extra days. We felt this momentum building because on the weekends when we go and play these shows, there were more and more people coming, and we did a winter tour with Far Side from California and Fast Break from Boston. On that tour, people were really coming out and starting to sing the songs from Can't Slow Down. That was really cool. So we'd only done the tour with Bane the summer after we graduated high school, and nobody knew us then. The album only came out at the end of the tour. While that was a really incredible experience, it was really wild to see people coming and starting to sing the songs. They knew the lyrics, and that was really wild. And at the same time, we had all these songs that I had been writing and the demos that I was making. They were a lot more like the song The Choke on Can't Slow Down and Always 10 Feet Tall, two songs on Can't Slow Down that sort of were the blueprint a little bit of the sound as it was evolving. And so we were really excited to go in and make this album at the end of our spring semester. We went in there and made Through Being Cool. The two albums that we were listening to the most on tour were the Foo Fighters album, The Color and the Shape, and their Fused album, The Shape of Punk to Come, which both came out kind of around then. And we were listening to them kind of non-stop in the van all the time. Just those two albums on repeat. I was also listening to the Joni Mitchell album Blue a lot. So lyrically, I think the album is influenced by Joni Mitchell's album Blue. I just really liked her poetry, and I was taking creative writing classes at school anyway, so I was really into that kind of writing. The Color and the Shape was the album that we used in the studio to get the guitar tone. So when we were starting to track guitars for Through Being Cool, we'd put on like My Hero or Monkey Wrench or something like that, and we'd just try to make our guitars sound like their guitars. You could hear the Refused influence on the last song, Band from the Back Porch. It's trying to be a Refused song. There's a lot of autobiographical stuff, and then there's a lot of stuff I tend to just write from feelings. It's a way to sort of talk it out, talk through it. So there are some songs that are not about any one particular thing, but they're about a feeling. Then there are also biographical moments as well. Band from the Back Porch is definitely I can remember that house party. A girl who became a girlfriend. I wrote about her a bunch on the album. She went to Costa Rica. So in the song You Vandal, I'm actually writing about her. And the song Shoulder to the Wheel obviously is actually about being on tour. Vast Spoils of America is that being on tour. The Last Lie I told, I had driven to Sam Ash. I don't know if they still have those. It's like a Guitar Center. and they had used to have these music instrument sales, and so I had driven to Sam Ash like really early in the morning to get there so I could buy a guitar or a PA or something. I forget what it was, or maybe a microphone for recording. I believe that's what it was, because I was recording that I'm Sorry I'm Leaving EP in my mom's basement at the time. I was just sitting there and I was all alone in this parking lot, and I was just like, what the lyrics are about is actually what happened that morning. Just sitting there. But then there's songs like Rocks, Tonic, Juice, Magic. That was just a creative writing assignment. If you felt like rage or something, or intense anger, you know, it's just an exercise. It's not about anybody. I've read people hear that the songs aren't about specific things, and it changes the meaning for them, but I don't think it should. It could be about whatever you want it to be about. The artwork was the idea of Brian, the drummer, Brian Newman, and David Soloway, the guitar player. They both took photography at Princeton Day School, the high school where we all went to school. They used the Through Being Cool layout as basically like an art project. And they were really into David LaChapelle. I think he's like a photographer. He used to set up these wild photo shoots where it kind of looked like a movie set. And so they just hatched the plan. You could kind of tell looking at it, like I'm just like a really awkward kid in that if you look at it, I'm just like awkwardly placed there. So I didn't have, none of that was my idea at all. So that was all Brian and David. We borrowed an apartment from a friend of a friend, and I think it was in Queens maybe. And we just invited all of our friends and people we knew from shows and people we knew from school, and we basically threw like a house party, and it was lively. It wasn't like a stiff photo shoot. They had the whole like story laid out and whatnot, and it's really cool looking back on it now. I'm still friends with so many people that are in that layout, and I remember that entire day so clearly. And then it became a bit of an iconic thing. I remember our label, Equal Vision, wasn't so sure about it when we delivered it to them, because I don't think they realized at first that it was tongue-in-cheek. They thought we were like, being kind of serious about it, but it's clearly not taking itself very seriously. It's just supposed to be fun. Taryn, the girl that David's found with, is still really close with the band. She comes to tons of shows, and we talk all the time, and it's just a cool thing to share. Our friend on the back of the album, there's somebody passed out on a couch. That is our friend who used to tour with us all the time, PJ Ransone. He actually is an actor. He plays Ziggy in The Wire, and he's going to be in the next It movie. So he's like Hollywood guy, and we just all grew up together, and he's the best dude ever. So it's bizarre. There's some intersecting stories in that layout. At first, people weren't really sure how to take the album because it's such a different sound. So people, in the punk rock and hardcore world, people are saying sellout and stuff. You know what I mean? But it's just an indie record, and it's clearly honest music. So that dissipated very quickly and turned into just total excitement. People were really, really stoked on the music. And right away at the shows, you could tell people were going nuts for it. I mean, like the shows tripled in size, and the singing got louder, and people were jumping up and down. And it was, you could feel it. You could feel how exciting it was. It was just undeniable. Right away, Brian and I deferred for a year at NYU because we knew we had a good album. But then once we started touring for it, we knew we made the right decision because we could tell it was going somewhere. It was electric. You could feel the energy in the room every night. The songs just had good energy, and we were having the time of our lives. It was great. It was a great time. I think people really like You Vandal. So we've been playing that every night on this tour, and it's just so fun to play. I love that song. I remember writing it at NYU. I was in a psychology class, and it was this like big classroom, like 100 students. And just before I got there early, and before the class started, I was just sitting there writing these lyrics. And so it's wild to play it now, you know, and people really love it, and we love playing it. And a lot of the other songs feel that way as well. As people like Shoulder to the Wheel a lot, and that's just a really fun song to play. It's a cool pop rock song. Rock's Tonic Juice Magic. And it's cool to me that that was written as a creative writing assignment to tap into that raw sort of emotion of anger. And you know, but I was doing it artfully and for a class. So it's cool to get to sing that and feel it connect for people. My favorite song is Hollyhock's Forget-Me-Nots. I just really love that song. I think we've played it every single show since the album was released. So we must have played it 1,000 times or more. And it's fun and fresh every time we play it. We joked when we were in the studio, there's like this guitar lead that we laid down in the chorus, and it felt really funky, so it sounded like the Jackson 5 to us. Of course, it doesn't sound like the Jackson 5, but it made us feel like we were, you know, doing something different. It's not rooted in, you know, like a bad memory or bad feelings or anything. I really just love singing that song every night. One thing I learned doing that album is that it's really important to take care of your voice as a singer, because 2/3 of the way through recording the vocals, we had to do the album in 11 days, you know, so you have to do everything very quickly. So I was having to do the vocals toward the end of the process and having to do them all one after another, and on the song Third Engine I blew out my voice. And I think you can kind of hear it in that song, but maybe that's just me because I remember it so vividly. I lost my voice for like 4 days. I couldn't talk or anything. So we had to finish all the other stuff from the album that wasn't the singing and book 2 extra half days at a different studio so that I could recover and then come back and finish My Sweet Fracture and Band from the Back Porch. One thing you can hear is Band from the Back Porch has a slightly different tonality to the vocal. It almost sounds like there's a phaser on it. That's a certain kind of effect. And that's because when we got there, the tape machine wasn't in the same sort of sync or whatever with the tape machine at Tracks East. So it had, and we only wound up figuring it out after I had laid down the vocal. So we thought, oh gosh, well, it sounds kind of cool, so that was a happy accident. If I were to go back, there's nothing I would change about that experience. We all learned a lot making that album, and I was growing so much as a songwriter. It's just a really great time to reflect on. I'm grateful to have had that experience, writing the album, recording the album, touring on the album, getting to be here 20 years later, celebrating the album. Just a wild, wild thing. Well, I'm so psyched that people love the record. It sounds so good on vinyl. I got to listen to it about a week ago. Like, I hadn't listened to the album in its entirety in a while. I think it's really good. Yeah, so I'm psyched people still dig it. Hey, I'm Chris from Saves the Day. For more videos from all your favorite artists, subscribe to APTV.